Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Scramble Drill. I'm Josh Johnson. Over there, we've got Ben, and for the second time ever, I almost said the first time ever, but it's really not.
No.
For the first time on video,
Yes.
actually, on YouTube, we have the commissioner of the granddaddy of them all, Mr. Landon Davis.
Yeah. First time the beautiful people at home have seen my face. Last time it was just audio.
It's a sight.
Yeah.
Landon, are you going to become a regular here?
I've been invited
Josh,
on
are
twice.
one of us getting replaced? We hear Josh is getting
You know,
replaced very soon.
I am getting pseudo replaced. I mean, we
You're
have
fired,
the baby
dude.
on the way.
The baby is on the way.
There's going to be a
flat out
period
fired.
of time when I disappear into the mountains and into the ether.
So, just so everyone knows, I just had a baby, and Ben, we had to wait on Ben a little bit, and we talked about babies for an hour.
About an hour.
About an hour before we got on here. So I'm trying to prepare Josh. But
Yeah, but we're almost there. So,
I'm sorry.
Landon,
My baby got hurt. That's why you had to wait on me.
good gracious.
My baby is a dog, though. He means a lot.
we
to
have
me.
a fun episode for everybody. We got this trade
Sheesh.
that shook the
This wasn't-
NFL
yeah.
world.
Supposed to be
Dude.
talking about running backs.
Yeah, we were meant to talk about running back prospects. We were like, you know what, Landon, we're going to talk about some Trey
Mhm.
Benson, some Blake Corum, and then all of a sudden, Stephon Diggs got traded. But even before that, we realized we had not talked about the Rashee Rice
Yep.
incident, whatever
The
you want
race
to
car
call
man.
it. Yeah, he was it a hit and run? I don't know if y'all saw like the dash cam footage of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've kept up with it pretty closely. And so he owned a Corvette and he was renting,
Past tense.
was it a Lamborghini? And they were racing and there was an accident with four other cars were involved. And my understanding is the reason they fled on foot was because it was rented in his name and possibly he wasn't driving. So that brings in all kinds of legal stuff because his name was the only one on the insurance. So it's kind of a crazy situation, legally twisted, that I don't fully understand.
He is cooperating with the police now, I've heard.
He did
That is what he said.
he did release a statement.
And I'm sure he is. It was the weird thing where it's like, okay, did somebody steal this car from him and then take off with it? And like, is he okay? Or did he drive the car, hit 4 or 5 other cars, and then I don't know. And I still don't really know what happened, but
Yeah, it's crazy that there's footage of it. And I mean, it's clear he is with the group of guys who are leaving the vehicle. So
yeah.
That is a felony, leaving the scene of an accident.
Well, everything I've seen, and I have absolutely no clue how this will shake out legally.
right.
But like, I have seen it's probably not a big deal.
It is.
I feel like he's
I mean, I
probably
would
going to
be-
get some sort of suspension.
Yeah, that's kind of where Josh and I are at. Like, it's probably,
2 games.
yeah, he's not going to go to jail. Like, we were talking about it in a league we have, and someone said in the chat, like, he's probably going to jail. And I'm like, if the Rashee Rice owner in my league thinks he's going to jail, I'm sending an offer.
Oh,
Like,
gosh, yeah.
I'll send an offer right now.
I'll give you
because
the-
I just don't
I'll
think
give you
that's
the
the case.
210 for Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I mean,
I have seen the panic sells on
Oh,
Twitter.
dude.
There are some.
Jeez.
Dude, I've
There's
seen
some
him go
rough-
for like
What was the
3rd-round
one?
picks.
I mean,
3rd-round picks, dude. I saw the
Thirds.
309 go for Rashee Rice.
the
Oh,
300
Lord.
guys. Yeah, I think
309.
I mean, he probably gets suspended by the NFL or at least the Chiefs. And you're looking at what?
What's worst case scenario? 4 games? Worst case?
Yeah, I'm
I
thinking.
mean, Alvin Kamara literally.
beat someone to a pulp.
Footage of him beating someone's face in.
Yes,
Got
and
3
he got
games.
He got three.
three
He got
games. So
I mean, the biggest one I think about Ezekiel Elliott a few years back. He got 6 for domestic violence. Could Rashee get 6? But that is like the worst case scenario. He's probably getting 2.
if that,
Yeah, I mean, and obviously the crazy part, and I heard someone make this point today, is like the difference in Rashee Rice and Henry Ruggs. I don't remember. Was Henry Ruggs, was he under the influence? I don't remember.
yeah, he was under the influence
Okay.
and somebody died in the accident.
But like the biggest difference is like a stranger who he'd never met put a seatbelt on. Like, that's the difference in Henry Ruggs and Rasheed. Like, if someone would have died in this accident, Rasheed Rice's NFL career is over. He's going to prison like Henry Ruggs did.
Yeah.
But that, thankfully, nothing happened. No one got seriously injured. So we're probably looking at 2 games, 3 games.
Yeah.
You can live with that.
It's an interesting situation where like people are panicking on him.
Yeah.
But
I'll send an offer.
And I feel like if
I have
Rasheed Rice
considered
is your
trying to.
wide receiver 1 anyway, your team's in a little bit of trouble.
Well, that's probably true.
Right, but I mean, very useful player. Like,
You
want Rasheed Rice on your team.
Not. I'm not saying he's bad, but like,
Yeah.
you need somebody other than him on your team.
Okay, so that leads us to the moment
Dude.
that has kind of eaten up news feeds today. Stephon Diggs was traded.
I was at work and like I was slammed, and I checked my phone like an hour and a half after it broke, and I had 42 text messages and like 30 were from you two.
Yeah, I saw the Schefter tweet like it was still in the seconds.
You saw it instantly.
It wasn't like a minute had gone by and I saw it and I immediately texted you two. It's the first thing that I was like, Diggs?
He got traded to the Houston Texans
Oh, man.
for a 2nd-round pick. They're also sending a 6th and a 5th along with Diggs to Houston.
25 second? I think it's a 25 second, is it not?
This year.
Yeah, it's not even
it
this
is
year.
25 second. I think
There
it's
you go.
it's the Vikings 25 second.
That's
Somehow
what I saw.
Houston
Yeah.
I
has
see.
that.
That makes sense.
So obviously, there's a lot of layers to it. Let's go on the Buffalo Bills side of this. He's gone, and then obviously with him leaving, your wide receiver 1 in the offense is gone. Everybody's, I think, freaking out a little bit on Josh Allen, which I find hilarious. They're also very excited about Dalton Kincaid. Ben, how do you feel about your sacred son, Josh Allen, now that he's no longer got his wide receiver 1?
Let me say that potentially Josh Allen's like my favorite player. Justin Herbert's probably like in my top 3. Between the 2 of these guys, their best receiver is Quentin Johnston. That makes me sad.
Curtis Samuel has had 1,000 yards in the NFL.
Don't talk to me about Curtis Samuel. I'm not worried about Josh Allen. I will open with that. I will say this, like, obviously it helps having Diggs on the team, but look at the back half of last season and the playoffs. Stephon Diggs did practically nothing. Like, now I know he drew coverage and things like that, but he himself like almost made no impact. He vanished in the second half of the season, and Josh Allen still produced at an elite level, almost beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. Stephon Diggs might have cost them the game with that drop in the playoffs. So,
yeah.
I say that I'm not worried about Josh Allen. We've never seen him without Diggs, but Diggs has sort of been declining a little bit. I'm not saying he's dead in the water by any means, but we have seen a little bit of fall off in his play. They're going to bring in another receiver. I don't think they can trade for one. That they're going to draft one. Like it is going to happen in the first round, be it they trade up or they take like A.D. Mitchell or Ladd McConkey. They are going to bring in another receiver.
I mean, that's what I think too. 28 has a rookie's name on it, most likely.
And
it's not going to be 28.
I don't think they necessarily will because they have so many, but they have so many other holes on their team. Like I could see them staying at 28, but I do agree. They have the capital now to trade up if they want to.
Yeah,
I don't think they get like Odunza or Neighbors. Like I don't think they get in the top 10, but I could see them jumping like to 15 or something and take Brian Thomas.
So what about sending 28 by itself for Brandon Ayuk or for T. Higgins and then paying them?
See, I would do that, but do they have to just eat the dead cap for
they got to eat
Stephon
they got
Diggs?
to eat
Because if
$30
they
million
do,
this year.
That leaves them, I was looking at this, that leaves them with $4 million in cap. I don't think they can afford Ayuk or Higgins. Like they have no money.
Well, the thought process would be maybe like you pay Ayuk his 5th-year option. Maybe you get Josh Allen to restructure for this year, and then there's no cap hit next year for Diggs.
He's already restructured once. Allen's already restructured once. Could he do it again?
You find the money for this year, and then you can give Ayuk an extension, and that kicks in next year. But I don't think they do that. I think they're going to go with the draft. I don't think they.
I think they will
trade
too.
for at least not one of those guys. They might trade for. They might trade for somebody like a lesser player, wide receiver 2 or 3, but they're not. I don't think they trade for one of those guys.
Who at this point? At this point, like I would just draft somebody.
I could very well see them signing Odell Beckham, drafting a rookie, calling it a day for this year, and then just taking their medicine this year and figuring things out in 25. The crazy thing is they're probably still going to make the playoffs this year. They're probably going to lose to Mahomes in the playoffs again. And we're just going to be looking at them as a 2025 Super Bowl contender and just like punt on this year a little bit, even though they're going to be very good.
2025 is quick. They let go, like their whole secondary is gone.
Oh, I know. They would have to do some finagling.
Sheesh.
It might be 26 before you have a
couldn't-
team again.
I can't remember all the names, but they let go of a pass rusher. They let go of Mitch Morris, Poyer,
Both safeties.
the other safety whose name is escaping me, Tre'Davious White, Gabe Davis, now Diggs. Like they lost like 10 starters.
Sheesh.
And
Well, I
they
mean, they
still
still got
have
DeMar Hamlin,
no
so.
money. They have no money. Like, I understand Josh Allen's making a lot of money. He's like the 8th or 9th highest paid quarterback. And they still don't have any money.
Well, I mean, they
Crazy.
tied it up they paid everyone. Like all those dudes that they cut got a second contract from the Bills, and now that check is coming due.
Well, Von Miller made
That too.
$120 million or something.
Yeah, I don't think they trade up too because, like, you losing Poyer, and I don't know why I can't think of the other safety's name, but, like, those guys were on the team for 7 years. Like, they have so many holes in the secondary too. I don't think they trade up. I think they just stay and use the picks they have.
Their team, I saw a tweet today, they have traded up a lot during the draft. They don't trade up before the draft, but like if somebody falls to 19 who they really like,
They traded up for Kincaid last year.
they're exactly right. They traded up for Kincaid. They will go up and get somebody if they fall to like somewhere where they can get a deal done to make sure they get their guy.
That's true.
So
That's true.
So speaking of Kincaid, how do we feel about him? Because Curtis Samuel is probably on paper the wide receiver one.
dude, stop saying Curtis Samuel. Just stop.
But
Leave Curtis
Kincaid
Samuel
is
out of this.
But Kincaid, he is the pass catcher number one for the offense as things stand today.
Yeah. I mean, Kincaid is, dude, there's like 6 or 7 tight ends that like you can feel good about in Dynasty right now. That was not the case going into last year.
Pitts?
Yikes.
Kincaid or Kyle Pitts?
Dude, I don't know.
I mean, both.
That's just.
I don't know.
I'm just
I wanna
curious
see
the
the first-
value gauge there.
I want to see the first month. I think those guys are.
That's fair.
I don't know. I think there's about 4 guys ahead of them. I think Laporta, McBride, Andrews, Hawkinson, and then those 2, and then probably Kelsey after that.
Obviously, things are going to change, but I did punch in the projections for Kincaid for this season, and I'm expecting there to be additional pieces in the offense. So this is by no means final. Whereas with Kyle Pitts, I think we have a pretty decent idea what that offense is going to look like. But right now, I'm sitting
Pitts
on
is locked into his target share.
Yeah. But for Kincaid, I've got him at tight end 3 this season.
Wow.
I've got him at 945
Redraft?
yards.
Redraft?
Yeah.
Wow.
For 24, I've got him at 3.
Okay.
With the full expectation, that's probably going to come down a little bit. Like, I think by the time that everything is locked in, he's probably more like 5 or 6. But today, I've got him at 3.
I do. He is one of the bigger winners today. And I feel better about him if they draft a wide receiver. Like, if they don't draft a wide receiver, I'm like, oh, dude.
Oh yeah.
He's just going to get triple.
Well,
but
it's like him and Shakir are the only guys with experience in that offense at this point.
yeah. And in all seriousness, Curtis Samuel, like in a deeper league, he could be something. He could be a flex. He might be a flex in like a 12, 14 team league, but
Would you go pay like a late second round pick for Curtis Samuel?
no. Anything to add to that, Ben?
Nope.
Okay, I didn't know. You didn't say anything. I didn't know if you would or not.
I have no love for or against Curtis Samuel. He is dead neutral to me. I do not care.
I will say, if you could sell Khalil Shakir right now,
Oh, yeah.
like if someone
I'm
offers you
selling
any
Samuel and
second,
Shakir, both of them.
if someone offers you any second, go get it. Like, they'll have games, like they're gonna have flashes, but dude, you're not gonna be able to rely on those guys.
Well, Shakir had like a couple of those 130-yard games on like 3 catches.
Yeah, on 4 targets. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
On the Texans
Josh
side
Allen's
of
going
this.
to heave a 70-yard bomb to somebody.
Yeah, I do not sell Josh Allen.
No.
Like, if you are worried, like, oh my gosh, Diggs is gone, what are we gonna do? Here's what's gonna happen. He's gonna go into the season. You're gonna watch him play a game, and you're gonna be like, he was not that good. Then you're gonna pull up Sleeper, and he scored 31 points.
So here's the thing. I went and looked at Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs' game logs at the end of last season when Diggs was terrible. From like weeks 10 to 18, Diggs had like 350 yards and 1 touchdown. Josh Allen in those same weeks was the quarterback 1.
Yeah. For me, he goes from the quarterback 1 in Dynasty to the quarterback 1 in Dynasty with this news.
I will say, I don't know. Maybe he's the 1A now. Like, I think Mahomes maybe jumps up a little bit closer to him now, or he falls a little bit closer to Mahomes. But no, I'm not panic selling Josh Allen.
Yeah, you're fine if you have him. You're fine.
I'm very okay
for
with
the
Josh
Texans. They add their third number 1 receiver to the rotation. Ben, we'll go to you here. Just like knee-jerk reaction for the Texans offense for those pieces. How are you feeling about this?
Oh, God. How much time do you have? There is a lot of moving pieces to talk about with this. So
there is.
I think CJ Stroud is now untouchable in Superflex.
He is the biggest winner
untouchable.
from today.
Yeah.
He's the biggest winner.
You cannot buy CJ Stroud. It is not possible.
Okay, where do you have him? Where do you have him ranked for your quarterbacks? Like just off the dome.
Redraft or dynasty?
Dynasty.
Oh, God. 3.
Okay.
Do
you have him above Lamar Jackson?
Above? Oh, yeah. I have him above Jalen Hurts.
You've got him
subject to change. I may change my mind later, but the knee jerk, adding a receiver like Diggs with the weapons he already had, I've got him at 3.
Golly. I'm right there. I mean, it's 3 or 4. It's him and Hurts right there, but I bump him ahead of Burrow and Lamar and Herbert and
I think for me the conversation is Lamar. I do think Hurts is over him, but he's definitely above Burrow, Herbert, Richardson, whoever was in that clump right behind him. I think he definitely jumped the pocket passers because, I mean, the thing with him is he did not run last year. He averaged like 18 points per game. Granted, obviously not with Diggs in the lineup, but he was on pace for like 220 yards rushing, which it's like enough to give you a little bit of a cushion here and there, but it's really not enough to be like safe.
It's more in defense of my boy, Joe Burrow. Joe usually rushes for like 200-300 yards too.
Joe rushes for more than that.
So like
Joe Burrow gives you 350 to 400.
I think he's close. Like Hurts, Burrow, and Stroud are all, and I guess you could put Lamar there. They're pretty close, but I would have Stroud on top of all 3 of them.
I feel, dude, if I'm a Texans fan, I feel really good.
Oh, I'm very excited.
Because they're doing the right thing. Like when he's on his rookie deal, we got 2 receivers, let's go get another one. Why not? Like they're doing the right thing, so I feel good.
Not fantasy-wise, where are the Texans in the AFC ranked?
I think they jumped the Bills.
I know what I have them at.
They jumped the Bills. I would say Kansas City's 1. I would say they're the 4th best team, but 2 of the best 2 teams ahead of them are in the same division. I would say Kansas City, Baltimore, then Cincinnati, then Houston, but Cincinnati and Baltimore, one of them is going to be a wild card.
Yeah.
So, and that division's brutal. One of them may not even make it. So they're going to be a top 3 seed.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I I've got Cincinnati at 2 only because like a healthy Joe Burrow with those weapons, I'm like, people are kind of sleeping on the Bengals a little bit. Like that when Joe's healthy, they're going to be nasty.
I would probably have the Bengals at 2 too. I don't know what I said, but I'd probably have the Bengals at 2, Ravens at 3.
That's
But
like
I mean,
I'm thinking
you saw
about
the
that
Ravens kind
division
of
now.
clobber them in the playoffs, but I think with Diggs, they got a real shot against them.
They do. And like, you know, Ben and I are very, very high on the Colts this year. But like,
Oh, they're better than the Colts. They're definitely better than the Colts.
there's definitely
They're
a
better than the
gap.
Colts.
And a lot of the Colts is we're excited about the promise, but they obviously haven't performed yet. Whereas the
And
Texans
I
won
think
9
the
games
Colts are a
without
good
Diggs.
team and got a shot at a wild card. But I think we're a little bit like more excited about the fantasy aspects of the Colts, like Richardson, JT, Pittman are all
Yeah.
going to be really good. But I don't know
Yeah.
how many like NFL games they win.
That's fair.
They've separated themselves. If they don't win the division, it's a disappointment. Like,
Yeah.
whereas Jags, Colts, Texans, like they were all in the same realm. Now, if the Texans don't win, it is a disappointment. That rookie
Trevor
deal
Lawrence
for a
gotta be a little bit
quarterback is
worried.
the cheat code.
Yeah.
The rookie deal is the cheat
Trevor
code.
Lawrence has got a lot of questions about him. People worried about Trevor Lawrence, and now that you got your boy Stroud doing this in your own division, like you were supposed to be running the division if you're Trevor Lawrence, and now
Right now,
you might be behind the Colts. You might be behind Richardson.
he is at best the second quarterback in that division.
Probably
And
he might be third.
we'll
though.
see about AR. I mean, he might
is
be
not-
better
he's not
fantasy than
close
real life
to
quarterback.
Stroud at this point.
How do we feel about those
He's
receivers?
not close to Stroud. Oh, I got a lot to say on those. If y'all want to, I don't know if y'all want me to go now or y'all go first. I don't care.
Yeah, you go
Yeah,
ahead.
you go ahead.
Ooh, somebody's gonna be the odd man out. Somebody's gonna be. It doesn't like I can't remember who I was listening to because I was trying to find this stat on the way home and somebody else did. It's happened like in 2021 and 2022 with the Bengals where you had Chase, T, and Tyler Boyd all in the top 30. And then like in 2013, somebody had 3 receivers in the top 30 for fantasy.
Had to
Other
be the
than that, it has
Broncos.
not happened.
Had to be the
It might have been
Broncos.
actually, yeah, it was the Broncos with like Sanders, Demaryius Thomas, and Wes Welker. But other than that, like it doesn't happen. So like it could. I mean, CJ Stroud, I think is that good. He could support him. He could throw for 5,000 yards this year. But the odds of it happening are not what you'd hope. So most likely somebody's the odd man out, and I think it
Mhm.
might be Nico Collins.
That's what I think too. So
Possibly.
I just plugged in some preliminary. I got like the spreadsheet pulled up. I just punched. So I've got the Texans projected for 610 pass attempts this year, which is upper echelon in the NFL. It's probably like maybe not top 5, but close in terms of pass volume. And so I punched in Tank Dell at 21% of the targets, Stephon Diggs at 24%, and Nico Collins at 21%. And the point totals, and I haven't gone and seen like where this ranks among all wide receivers, but Tank Dell's at 231 PPR points, Diggs is at 244, and Collins is at 210. So 210 is probably like wide receiver
that's-
25, 26, like a good flex,
That's
but
a
like
dream
not
scenario if that happens.
Yeah, that is
a.
like
Yeah, that's very
That's
optimistic.
best
Yeah,
case
it is.
scenario. That's high.
Oh.
And
So
it-
there,
it
I mean,
could
there's
happen,
for
like,
sure.
The Bengals have done it, where like Chase is top 5, T. Higgins was like top 15, and Tyler Boyd snuck in there at like wide receiver 27, I think.
the difference is the Bengals, like Chase was a clear top option. These guys are all pretty close, I think, talent wise.
Yeah.
Like with Diggs has slipped a little bit. I think
agree.
he's right in line with those guys. Right now, and you mentioned it earlier off the air, I feel the best about Tank Dell right now. I feel the best about his value.
I would buy Tank Dell. I would buy
Yes.
Tank Dell.
Yes. Here's the thing about Nico Collins. This is the last year of his rookie deal. So maybe they extend him, but do you bring in Diggs and extend Nico? So next year you could be looking at a 32-year-old Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell is that receiver room.
That would be fascinating.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, right now, maybe if I'm assuming Nico walks, maybe they trade for Diggs and extend Nico. That's possible. But I mean, I'm thinking maybe this year Dell maybe takes a value hit, but then next year you're like, oh, dang, Tank Dell's in a really good spot. He's got the most long-term, he's got the longest contract on the team as far as wide receivers.
Do you think any of these receivers, any one of the three, will like take a step forward as the for sure number one, and then the other two will kind of fight for that second spot? Like, do you think there will be a clear-cut number one, or is it going to kind of be all three of them getting involved?
I mean, I don't know what y'all. I think Diggs is still going to be the one. Like he's wherever he goes, be it Minnesota or Buffalo, like he's had like a 25% target share, and that's like the low end of what he has. I know he's 30, but that's still Stephon Diggs.
I think the season starts that way for sure. I think he's kind of in their minds the one, but who knows? Maybe he gets outplayed.
That's the thing. Is like Tank Dell, his 160-pound self was just crushing defenses last year.
Yeah. And where did Nico Collins
they did
finish
pay a
this
second
year?
rounder.
That's true.
Where did Nico Collins finish this year? Because I think he had 105 targets, which is not astronomical. I mean, it's not like he needed
that's
150
like
targets
Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like Ayuk. Collins finished, if I can get him to pull up, he finished at 9.5 PPR, 12 in full. He had 109 targets.
109 targets. Yeah, so that's not like,
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get 160 targets.
He had 1,300 yards on 109 targets.
1,300.
That is that's
wow.
Brandon Ayuk work right there. Brandon Ayuk had 1,300 yards on 105 targets.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess that tells you he doesn't have to be a target hog. But I don't know. I'm interested to see where their values go. Like, I'm interested to see like how people react to this.
There is one clear loser.
I think.
Who? The loser of this trade is clearly Dalton Schultz.
Oh, dude, Dalton Schultz is.
If you were counting on Dalton Schultz, you didn't have a tight end.
If he was your tight end one, you were looking to upgrade anyway. But like,
he was like a decent tight end if you had to have one.
If you had to have,
he's like
one.
what tight end 9 to 12 somewhere in there.
Yeah,
and it should be said. I mean, Diggs, I feel like never really gets hurt, but Tank Dell missed time last year. Nico missed time. Like, there's going to be games where it's just two of them, and I feel great about both options.
Yeah,
like if it's just two of them in a game, I'm firing them both up. It's just when they're all three on the field,
that's tough.
What does the target share look like?
Somebody's going to be the odd man out.
And I guess what I'm curious too is like who plays the slot, because Nico Collins is the outside guy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But between Tank Dell and Diggs, I think Diggs is going to get primarily all the slot snaps, which means Dell, and that's where it could be weird because Dell could be the odd man out in that he's just not on the field as many snaps as Collins and Diggs just based on role. Not a talent thing, but just based on how he plays in the offense.
And
Tank
I don't
Dell
know
was
if
lining
this
up everywhere last year, though. He wasn't just
weighs
in the slot.
any into
he wasn't just outside.
I don't know if this weighs any into it too, but Tank Dell was a 24-year-old rookie. He's old. Like, we're worried about Xavier Legette because he's old. Tank Dell's old.
Yeah, Tank Dell's old, but he's got the most contract. He's got the longest contract on the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diggs, there's an out next year, and Nico, this is his last year. Like,
yeah.
Now, one of those two guys is definitely going to get an extension. I don't know which one. I mean, I would imagine they extend Diggs or just pick up his option or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe they just say, hey, you know what? CJ's cheap. Let's give Nico an extension and pick up Diggs' options.
Yeah. I cannot imagine, though, you would have
both go when Stroud's contract
two
is up.
20+ million receivers and Tank Dell. That feels like a lot, but, crazier things have happened.
I don't know.
Anything else on that trade before we talk some running backs?
Oh,
Nothing from fantasy. The real life part of it that was weird to me was it was so quiet. You heard nothing about this, and Diggs is a guy who has shown he is not afraid to make some noise. And it was like out of nowhere. I didn't see this coming.
I was legitimately on Twitter last night and I didn't know a thing about the trade or anything, but I was like scrolling through, and Diggs got into an argument in the comment section of one of RG3's posts. And RG3 was talking about like how we've never seen Josh Allen without Diggs, who made who, blah, 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 stuff like that.
Yes, we did.
And somebody in the comments said Diggs didn't make Josh Allen. He helps, but he didn't make him. And Diggs himself responded. He's like, "You sure about that?" And went on like a whole rant. And like, I'm sitting here last night and I'm like, somebody needs to just takes Twitter away from Stephon Diggs. And then this happens today.
I mean, it was like there were rumors towards the end of the season, and there was something clearly off down the stretch. Like something was weird.
Yeah.
But it was not a big fuss. He wasn't like, I'm holding out. There was nothing. It was just like, Schefter tweets, Diggs got traded to the Texans. And you're like, what? That was the weird part to me. It was like, man, this was quiet. And I thought if Diggs is getting traded, it's going to be loud.
Yeah.
You're going to know he's getting traded.
It's going to be a thing like when Aaron Rodgers got traded. Like he'd been talking about it. Everybody been talking about it.
Yeah. It'd be interesting if you like went back and said like, what real life trades have impacted dynasty fantasy football the most? This has got to be up there. Like every angle of this is like somebody's getting impacted.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
Let's talk some running backs. Do y'all have a solidified RB1 in this year's class?
I do now.
You can tell us who it is.
Yeah.
I didn't know if y'all were waiting on something. We're still getting the dynamic of three people. It's going to take a second. But Josh, you'll appreciate this one. I've been lower on the guy because of the ACL injury, but the more and more I look at him as a player and the situation that he's probably going to go into, it's just hard to pass on Jonathan Brooks, man. He's the most talented running back in the class, I think. I don't think there's any debate about that. It is like solely the ACL that's the problem. But if Dallas takes him on day 2, like, okay, I'm fine with him starting slow like Breece Hall did and finish the season with his hair on fire. Like I'll wait the 6 weeks and let him in hot.
Yeah, I kind of have just a tier 1. I don't have one of these guys ahead of the other, really. Everything I see, people who really are into the NFL draft, like actual scouts, say that if there was no ACL tear, it would be Brooks, and it would be like
not close.
There's not a debate. But I think him and I think Benson did himself a lot of favors at the combine. I think those two are my, I guess, S tier, you would say. And like, it's going to depend on the most important factor for me when it comes to running backs is not college production. It's not landing spot. It's not even combine. It is draft capital. Basically, whoever gets drafted first. I mean, like if Benson, like I think they're really close. If Benson was to go 15 picks ahead of Brooks, like Benson has got to be the guy. If Brooks was to go 15 picks ahead of Benson, I think you take him. Draft capital when it comes to running backs is king. Most people don't think there's going to be a first round back in this class. I certainly don't think that.
No.
But whoever gets the highest draft capital is got my attention between those two for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
and
for
I'll
me,
say I kind of agree with you there. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just like, I didn't watch any of Jonathan Brooks' games when he was playing at Texas. I kind of just saw his name floated around, and then I started doing like, you do the stat deep dive after the season's over, and I started looking at like, who's the leader in missed tackles forced per attempt, who's got the highest PFF grade, all this stuff, and Brooks is number 1 in everything.
Really?
He's analytically incredible. And like Benson is up there. Benson's great. Mm-hmm. But Brooks is, if you just combine like your favorite metrics for what makes a good running back, absent draft capital, absent landing spot, Brooks is clearly the best guy.
Right.
He's just very well rounded. He's a good pass catcher. In fact, like I saw his comp being Aaron Jones a lot. And like it sort of makes sense when you watch him a little bit because he's very fluid. He flips his hips really, really well. He's not like a stiff run you over kind of guy. He's more of an elusive guy, but he's just very good. He's not He's not a Breece Hall talent. He's not one of these crazy talented guys, but he's very much like an Aaron Jones who was drafted later in the draft and then got on the field and everybody's like, okay, this dude's great. We need to get him on the field more. And that's sort of how Brooks is for me.
One sneaky thing about him that I like in a college running back is he was sitting behind Bijan and Roschon Johnson. So there's not a ton of tread on the tires.
There's like no tread.
There's like no tread on the tires. Like, I loved Jonathan Taylor coming out, but that was like my biggest knock on him. I was like, this dude's got 1 billion carries.
Yeah.
And he's been great, obviously. He's been great. But like, I like that about Jonathan Brooks. Like, dude has not taken a ton of hits.
He's got less than 300 college carries.
Does he? 300. Like, that's crazy.
It's so low.
That is so low. And I know obviously he got hurt, but I mean, running backs get hurt. What are you gonna do? But I mean, if he goes in the second round, man, him or Benson, I think. If either one of them goes in the second round, I feel very good about him.
Benson
has
he's the prototype.
Yeah. His production profile is not as good, but if you look at just his testing numbers, he looks like Breece Hall. Like they're the same size, same speed, all that kind of stuff. He just didn't produce like Breece Hall did. 216
pounds, ran a 4.39.
That's Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall level.
Sheesh.
Height, speed, weight, speed. It's terrifying because I mean he is.
Why didn't you have 1,000 yards at Florida State? You never had that.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about him because he was consensus like one of a lot of the running back one going into the season. Like a lot of people had him as running back one, and then his production fell off this year for whatever reason. Maybe he was banged up, maybe whatever it was, and then he comes out at the combine, and I'm thinking like if he beats 4.5, that would be good. Like if he's in the 4.4s. And he goes 4.39 at 216. That is, that's what you like to see.
It is nice.
No. If Trey Benson gets the draft capital, like I kind of agree with Landon. I think Brooks is the better running back. But if Benson gets the draft capital, like I'm in on him. Like he's that athletic.
Yep. So those are the top two in my opinion, at least. You haven't. Would you say those are the top two?
Yeah, I think for most people, that's probably the top two. I have seen the odd Braylon Allen being the RB1 for some people, and I do not agree. I'm not there at all. I have seen it, so I want to bring that up, probably because he's like 20 years old and he produced as a 17-year-old.
Yeah,
but
his production is pretty crazy. Like he's got a lot of production. Obviously, he produces a 17-year-old. I was watching not a fantasy podcast, but like a scouting YouTube video, like an actual scouts. And one guy who he said, when this was sent to me, I thought it was a joke. I thought like the running back was so not explosive that I thought it was Braylon Allen's tape. And he said, I thought it was somebody was joking around when they said this guy might be one of the top running backs. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, oh my goodness. That's not a good sign.
Well, I'm out.
I was watching Greg Cosell, who he's just a film guy.
Yes. Yes.
Was it him?
It wasn't him, but it's a guy similar to that.
Okay.
Yes.
And I was watching him talk about Braylon Allen, and he's being nice about it. But basically what he said was he's huge, and he's not a physical runner, and he doesn't break long runs. Like he's just kind of a grinder on tape. And I was like, yeah, that's not what I want in a fantasy running back.
Yeah.
A dude that's dependent on touchdowns.
I mean, look, anybody can like get better at football and be good in the NFL. He could, right? I mean, we don't know, but as of the prospect profile, I'm not as in on.
Yeah. No.
What about Marshawn Lloyd?
I like Marshawn Lloyd.
He is who I would have ranked third. Yeah. He's got a lot of what you like to see.
I've got at 3 as well.
Look at his.
He's a little bit. He stayed 4 years, but I think there's a little bit of a pass you can give him. He tore his ACL as a freshman. Took him a year to get back. Comes back in just a bad South Carolina offense. Like the whole situation was just it wasn't good. And then he goes to USC. Excuse me. He goes to Southern Cal. The real USC is this one right here, South Carolina. but goes to Southern Cal, and he has a good season. He produces. He shows what he can do as a receiver. Scores a lot of touchdowns. Not a good offensive line at Southern Cal. And then he goes and runs a 4.46 at the combine.
Yeah, 4.46 at 220 pounds.
He's a big boy, and he is a good receiver. So that
Good
I think
receiver.
bumps him up to it in my mind.
Yeah, that's the thing with him is like I could probably be argued into Marshawn Lloyd over Benson, or honestly even over Brooks, depending on like draft capital and landing spot. Like we've joked around before recording that like whoever the Cowboys get, that's just probably going to be the number one guy of these rookies. And you know the Chargers are in there too, where it seems pretty likely that they're going to draft a running back. But like if you see Marshawn Lloyd or Trey Benson go to the Chargers or the Cowboys with decent draft capital, you could probably argue into that guy being the number one dude. But I do feel like they're very similar. They're kind of in a cluster. I think I prefer Brooks as a talent. Obviously, you got the ACL. Benson could be awesome, but there's question marks. And Lloyd, you know, he also had knee injuries. Like all three of these dudes have had ACL injuries. And, you know, there's really good things on their profiles and some things that maybe aren't awesome. And so we're all kind of like, well, I mean, he could be good. He could be good. I don't know.
Right. I said this before we started the podcast. The NFL kind of told you what they thought about this running back class when they handed out a ton of free agent running back contracts, which has not happened in years.
Yeah.
Because teams were like, oh, we can just draft one. But this year, it kind of seemed like they were saying, we can't just draft one. Like, there's not that many. It's not a really deep class.
Yeah.
Now, look, some of these guys are going to be really
teams
good.
wouldn't pay.
And we just not going to see it. But we just don't know who they are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Teams wouldn't pay Saquon and Josh Jacobs last year.
No.
Now
But they did this
now
year.
they're willing to give him money.
Yeah. Are there any other running backs we need to get into?
I think Corum deserves a mention.
Yeah.
Just because Harbaugh's probably taking him.
Honestly, dude, if he takes him, like, he's going to use him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's
Dude,
not
the
going to
Chargers
draft
don't have
him.
any weapons. Like, they're going to be a ground and pound football team.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to draft his guy and just not use him.
Yeah.
So I would be very interested if the Chargers drafted Corum. Very interested.
The thing with Corum, and
Corum,
like, yes,
he did test better than I thought he would at the combine.
yeah, he's quick, he's shifty. He's the thing that I would say with him, if like you had to compress what he does well into like one sentence, he's amazing in a phone booth. But like he does not have long speed. He does not break away any runs at all. I mean, like he's a grinder where it's every yard is positive yards. He doesn't get tackled behind the line of scrimmage, but it's like 4 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 11 yards. But like it's not flashy at all. Granted, if you go to the Chargers in what we think that offense is going to be, he's probably going to be pretty good for fantasy.
Yeah. He has some similarities to me. I'm just going to mention Bucky Irvin. Like what I can say is they're really good at football. Like in college, when everyone is kind of a similar athlete, they're really good. People can't tackle them. They have a hard time with Corum. They had a hard time with Irvin, but they don't measure athletically like an NFL running back. They just don't. Like Corum, you said he tested better, but it wasn't great. Bucky Irvin was like, was he the disappointment of the combine?
He might have been.
When I saw Bucky Irving's speed score, I was like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not taking him.
Yeah, he's small.
Like his
he's
speed
slow,
score was,
so
I think, worse than Audric Estime. And Audric Estime ran a 4.7.
Yeah, like he was like 192 pounds and he ran 4.55.
Yeah.
So like,
I think he ran
in
4.6.
college, you watch him and he's like, oh my gosh, nobody tackles him. It's just, is that going to translate to the NFL when everyone's a better athlete than him? Literally everyone on the field's a better athlete than him.
Yeah.
Is it going to translate?
And there's outliers. Kyron Williams.
There's
is an outlier
outliers,
like
right?
that.
Kyron Williams was an outlier, right? There's all kinds of outliers, right? But when I'm going into my rookie draft, I mean, in the 4th round, I'm looking for outliers. But if I'm sitting on the clock at the 209,
and I'm
No,
staring down Blake Corum or
no
Bucky
shot.
Irving or
Yeah.
maybe Marshawn Lloyd's there, I'm going to take the dude who's got the prototypical skill set in
Right.
Lloyd.
And even to me, I would rather take a flyer on a wide receiver than a running back. Like those top three we talked about, like Brooks, Benson, and Marshawn Lloyd. I'm comfortable taking all those guys. Like depending on landing spot from maybe the 110 on in Superflex, 109 on maybe. But the rest of them, I'm probably going to take a receiver instead. I'll take a shot on Jalen McMillan in the third round over any of these running backs probably.
That was going to be the question that I was going to ask the two of y'all is, let's say we're assuming Jonathan Brooks is the RB1, that he gets drafted as the RB1. Landing spot is fill in the blank, whatever you want. Which wide receiver are you taking him over? Because there's probably going to be, Brock Bowers is probably gone when you're thinking about Brooks. And so you're looking at, is Brian Thomas Jr. and Jonathan Brooks in a similar conversation? Is it more Adonai
Or
Mitchell,
JJ
Xavier
McCarthy if
Worthy,
the Vikings getting.
Leggett? Yeah, I mean,
So
JJ McCarthy too.
Sorry, we're talking about receivers, but I was thinking like 109 in my head, and I'm like, JJ McCarthy could be there if he goes to a good landing spot. So sorry, go ahead.
I think 109 is probably going to be the start. Like it depends on draft capital landing spots. Let's say something crazy happens. Let's say somebody takes one of these guys at like the end of the first. That changes drastically. All of a sudden, everything's changed at that point. But assuming they go mid-second,
that
something like
fifth-year
that.
option on a running back is huge.
Yeah. But let's say they go mid-second or something. I mean, you're looking at the top three quarterbacks. You're looking at Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. They'll all be gone. I want all those guys above them. JJ McCarthy, if he gets the draft capital, people are saying, that's 4. And then, obviously, Marvin, Neighbors, and Odunze, and Bowers. So that's 8.
Then do you take him over? Let's say the Bills draft Brian Thomas Jr.
I would definitely prefer, if the Bills
Taking
draft
Brian
Brian Thomas
Thomas.
Jr.,
Oh, yeah.
give me him far ahead of these guys. And then after that, it depends on draft capital and landing spots with your Xavier Worthies, your A.D. Mitchells, your Lad McConkeys, to whether I would want these guys or.
I'm taking him over 2 of those receivers, whichever one doesn't go in the first, or the one that goes in the first round, I would probably take over him. But Lad McConkey and Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, I think probably 2 of them don't go in the first. Maybe they do. I don't know, but 1 or 2 will be the odd man out.
Y'all just know the Chiefs are going to take somebody at 32.
They will.
And it's just going to mess everything up.
They're going to take Lad McConkey, and that's going to screw with my head, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to know what to do with that one.
Something interesting that I'll mention, like if, let's say Benson and Brooks get very similar draft capital. Let's say they get, they both get decent landing spots, and you're on the clock and you're trying to decide between them. I think Brooks, in his first season, there is going to be a buy window that opens up because of the ACL.
Oh, yeah.
Some manager is going to draft him and get very frustrated that it's week 7 and he's not performing. It's week 9 and he's not performing. There's going to be a buy window open at some point this year for Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, I think there needs to be a disclaimer out there that if you go in and draft Jonathan Brooks expecting him to be a contributor to your fantasy team year 1, probably not getting what you think you're getting.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you're betting on year 2, and that's where you just hope the draft capital is good enough that there's team investment that they'll stick with him beyond year 1 when it could be disappointing.
Right.
Maybe he's good the second half of the season, but
yeah.
I feel like if an NFL team's going to take Jonathan Brooks, they know. Right. Look at Breece Hall this year. He's going to start slow, but that's why they brought in Dalvin Cook on a 1-year deal.
Right. The NFL team knows that, but the guy who drafts him in your rookie draft might get frustrated.
No, yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And you might, let's say he gets drafted at the 111, you might be able to trade the equivalent of a mid-second later in the season to get him. Because I just think fantasy managers get impatient.
no, that's
I do.
true.
Well, especially if he's going at the 111, that guy probably had a good team, and Jonathan Brooks isn't starting for him.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. Anybody else you want to talk about? Are there any sleepers? I know Jalen Wright gets brought up speed guy from Tennessee.
Yeah.
I don't have any strong opinions one way or another about honestly any other running back outside of those like 4 or 5.
Yeah,
at the
I
top.
don't either. I think it's the top
Like you
3.
said,
Corum,
it's-
if he goes to the Chargers, certainly. And then, like, if you have conviction about one of these guys, if you are just a Jalen Wright believer and you're like, I'm taking him, take him. Great. But there's just no other guy I feel really confident in. I will say some of these guys are going to be good. And when they're good, it's the best price you'll ever be able to get them in a rookie draft. Like, running backs always go higher than what we're talking about right now. So somebody's going to get a steal in the late second. Like,
Yeah.
all across drafts everywhere. But I just don't have conviction of who it is.
It's going to be like you said. I mean, there's going to be, maybe there won't be, but probably one of these guys we're not thinking about, like, pops up like late at the second round. And you're like, oh, shoot. Like, the Dolphins took Jalen Wright at the end of the second. I'm like, well, dang.
What if they did? What if they're like, he's fast. We're just
That
going to
could
take
happen.
the fast guy.
The Seahawks
That could happen.
take the first running back off the board.
Stop it.
They just take a second round running back every single year.
Gosh. Your
We can put a
your Zach
shovel in
Charbonnet
Kenneth
shares
Walker.
are
Oh,
even
gosh.
more in the toilet.
Why did they do that last year?
Charbonnet and Walker, dude.
Dude, we could have had man.
Anything else we want to get into before we hop out of here?
I'm still kind of just reeling from the Stephon Diggs news, dude. It took me a good hour to process it.
Man.
Especially like to what you were saying earlier, it came out of nowhere.
It was, I mean, wow. I definitely
I mean,
would
it was-
not have thought.
You didn't expect it because it was this typical Diggs off-season drama. Like, he does this
Yeah.
every year. So, like, why would we think he gets traded?
Yeah, and there wasn't
RIP
anything
to
in
the
like
Texans
the last.
locker room.
There wasn't anything like the last 2 weeks that made you think, oh, this is coming right now.
Right.
Like, he's getting traded. It was just like out of nowhere.
I can't get over the fact that they are eating $30 million this year to not have him play for them. Like
So the Texans aren't paying any of that. Like, it's all coming out of the Bills
No.
cap.
the Bills are
That means
just
That means the Bills
eating it.
literally have $4 million in cap space. So they can't get anyone. They have to draft.
it's wild to me. Like they could have just kept him and let him play for them, and it would have been the same situation for their cap. Like it's not like it's a relief to their cap situation to get rid of Stephon Diggs. Like they just did not want him. And it's a futures play. You know, they're trying to clear up the cap in the future, but still this year they are just eating it.
They're ripping the Band-Aid off. They're like, dude, they can't be thinking they're going to contend for a Super Bowl this year. That can't be like.
But they are because you have Josh Allen. Like every year
I
you have
meant
a
to
shot.
say this earlier. But like, he's not Mahomes. I'll give you that. But like, we forget Josh Allen is still a top 3 NFL quarterback. You're going to compete with him back there. They may not win a playoff game, but they're going to compete.
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely make the playoffs. I don't see a world where they compete for the Super Bowl this year. Again, in his
They won't
career,
beat the
yes.
Chiefs.
Not this year.
They won't
Wild.
beat the Chiefs.
So
They won't beat the
weird that-
Bengals.
It's just a
They won't beat the
weird
Ravens.
thing
Yeah.
that they traded him in the AFC to a contender,
Yes.
to a team that is now better than you.
Yeah, this is amazing for Stephon Diggs. Like, they did him a solid.
Like I don't know. Like when the Vikings traded him to the Bills were like, okay, Josh Allen was hectic and chaotic and not dialed in as a quarterback. And obviously we forget before Diggs, he was struggling.
Yeah.
And then they got
He
Diggs
completed
and
like
took off.
58% of his passes.
Yeah. But the Vikings traded him to the AFC to a team that wasn't really Super Bowl contenders at the time. Now they became that.
Yep.
But that's who they traded him to. And the Bills traded him to the Texans? Like, why didn't you just send him to the Chiefs? Dang.
I know. Or why didn't you just send him to an NFC team? Like, you know, why the Texans and not like the Panthers or the or somebody who needs a receiver. They said no, we don't care.
Screw you, Stephon. You're going to Carolina.
If they wanted to trade him to the Patriots,
Right.
in division.
Somebody who clearly could use a receiver. Like the Patriots need a receiver like they need water, and they could not.
They need a receiver,
get a
and
deal
if you
done.
give him to the Patriots, it won't matter.
The other part of this is like, there are other teams that could have had Stephon Diggs for a 25-second, who
Yeah.
have more cap space, who need a receiver much more than the Texans. And the Texans were like, oh, wait a second. We can get Stephon Diggs on our team? Yeah, let's do that.
That's
why
what I'm
didn't
thinking.
other teams, why weren't they in on this?
There's so many other teams that clearly needed a receiver so much more, and I don't know how trades get done in the NFL, but
Yeah.
still, it's like this. It's wild that it was to that team for that amount, and the Bills are just eating all the cap, and it's wild.
Hey, CJ, go see if you can win a Super Bowl with Stephon Diggs.
T. Higgins
Crazy.
is probably
I-
mad, and he's been wanting to trade for a month.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is like, are you kidding me? The Texans, you couldn't have
30-year-old
sent
Stephon
that?
Diggs, but
Man, I guess they're more attracted that they have an out after year one, but still, like, dude.
yeah, if you trade for Higgins or Ayuk, you immediately have to pay them.
Yeah, you're locked in for 5-6 years.
My favorite
So-
meme that I've seen so far is like a picture of a dude like grinning sheepishly, and it was captioned like Josh Allen grinning at CJ Stroud when Diggs gets 6 targets when he could have gotten 7, and he's like throwing a pan or something at him.
It could be a very real
Deal
possibility.
with
That
that,
is
CJ.
interesting. That is interesting. What if Diggs, because Diggs has been like one of the most targeted guys the last few years. What if his target, what if he
160
gets
plus every year?
30 less targets this year, which is
Oh,
very
he's gonna
possible.
Be pissed.
How's he going to
be
react
pissed.
to that? It's weird too, because most of the time, Ben, what do I always say? What are the two things receivers want?
Money and the ball.
They want the ball and they want money, and he had both those things,
Yeah.
and he still wanted out. I don't know. It's weird. Typically, if a receiver asks out, it's because they're not getting the ball, or more commonly, they're not getting the contract. T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Diggs had both, and I don't know. It's weird. There's something going on.
Maybe he wanted the ball, money, and he wanted to win a Super Bowl. And because they couldn't get the Super Bowl, it was like,
Well,
not
do you
enough.
think the Texans beat the Chiefs? I don't know.
I mean, they
I'm
don't
not betting against the Chiefs.
could, but I don't know if I would bet on it.
I don't think so, but
We said that, rule number 1 going forward is you just don't bet against Mahomes in the playoffs. I'm not going to break the rule now that
If
the
Mahomes
Texans,
wide receiver 1 is me, then I might bet against him. But it's still 50-50.
Well, yeah, but with Marquise Brown, Rasheed Rice, and he's fine. He'll be good.
dude, but Rasheed Rice is going to miss 2 games.
You're right. He's going to miss 2 playoff games.
Dude, so crazy. If you would have told me this morning, Stephon Diggs to the Texans, I'd been like, you're crazy. I'd be like, he might get traded. He's not getting traded
kind of
there.
had that inkling. Did I not talk to you guys some before? Like, I think the Texans bring someone else in.
You
I
were
didn't think it'd be
harping on it
Stephon
all
Diggs.
offseason.
But I
All
thought they brought
offseason.
somebody else in.
And they did, boy.
They sure did.
I thought they were going to bring in like Rashid Shaheed, not Stephon Diggs. Maybe Michael
They
Thomas.
bring in Michael Thomas's 30-year-old self.
Yeah, maybe
They
him.
bring in a 30-year-old receiver.
What's
But
the
a
dude
good
for the
one.
Broncos?
They should have
KJ
traded for
Hamler.
Devontae Adams.
Oh,
What are we doing?
Bring
What
in
are we
KJ
doing,
Hamler
guys?
maybe, but not Stephon Diggs.
It's wild. That'll do it for this one. Appreciate you joining the pod, Landon.
It was good.
You'll be hearing him a lot more frequently as
That'd
we
be
get
great.
you sort of into the rotation as we're preparing for me to exit the premises for a
We're
few
not
months,
paying you,
a
though.
couple weeks. Oh no, it's all
You will not
free
be
work.
paid.
So just in
We
case
don't
you
get
didn't know
paid, so
that
you don't
already.
get paid.
No, I understood. I understood completely.
That'll do it from this one. We'll see you guys next week.